All right, let's talk about something that feels, well, familiar, but it has a backstory that is just wild. Shaped by legal loopholes, some really weird economics, and a constant fight over just a few inches of space. This is the surprisingly complicated story of how the lap dance was invented.
Okay, so let's start with a little economic puzzle, one that seems to defy all logic. I mean, think about it. The price of literally everything, coffee, cars, you name it, has gone through the roof since the 1980s. But there is one service out there that has just stubbornly refused to get more expensive. Any guesses?
The answer? The standard per-song lap dance. Yep, for almost 4 decades. That price has been locked in at $20 in a lot of places. So how on earth is that possible? Well, to figure out that economic anomaly, you first have to understand where this whole thing even came from. Now, you might think, oh, erotic dance, that's as old as time itself. And you'd be right. But the lap dance? Totally different story. It's not some ancient art form. It's a modern, uniquely American invention. And it wasn't born from tradition. It was born as a super clever workaround for a very specific legal problem.
So, here's the deal. Back in the 1970s, a lot of cities had these really strict laws about what could and couldn't happen on a public stage. Club owners quickly realized that the laws were laser-focused on the stage itself, but they were kind of vague about what could happen on the floor, right there in the audience. And that little legal gray area? That's where a whole new industry was born.
And what's really wild is that this wasn't some single flash of genius from one person. It was an idea that kind of popped up at the same time on opposite sides of the country as different people were all trying to solve the exact same legal headache.
It's this incredible parallel evolution. You've got clubs in New York's Times Square trying out this Mardi Gras idea, where dancers would just leave the stage and sit on patrons' laps. At the same time, way down in Florida, this legendary club owner, Joe Redner, was pioneering what he called contact dances. 2 different names, same exact idea, all to get around those pesky onstage rules.
Okay, so you have this sort of chaotic, informal workaround happening in a few places. So how did that get turned into the polished, branded, standardized product that we all recognize today?
Well, the whole game changed in 1980 out in San Francisco. The Mitchell Brothers' O'Farrell Theater took this raw idea and basically industrialized it. They created special customer contact rooms. And this was just marketing genius. They realized they weren't just selling a dance, they were selling intimacy. They were selling the idea that you could break down that wall between fantasy and reality.
And from there, it just exploded. I mean, the speed was incredible. The slang term lap dancing first shows up in writing in 1983 on the early internet. Just 3 years later, boom, it's in a major newspaper. And by 1992, it's official. It's a real word in the Oxford English Dictionary. That is a ridiculously fast journey from a legal loophole to a cultural fixture.
So, with a catchy name and a marketable hook, the lap dance absolutely blew up in the 1990s. It moved out of the shadows and into these new upscale gentlemen's clubs. But as you can probably guess, as its popularity soared, so did the legal and political backlash.
Right. That promise of intimacy was the magic ingredient. Hollywood totally sealed the deal with movies like Showgirls and Striptease, and that cemented the lap dance in the global imagination. But all that visibility, it also put a massive target on the industry's back.
So cities decided to fight back. And their most famous weapon? The 6-foot rule. It was an ordinance that said dancers had to stay at least 6 feet away from customers. It was a direct legal assault on the one thing that defines a lap dance, the contact.
But wait, how could they even do that? Well, they couldn't just ban the dance itself. Courts had already said it was a form of protected speech. So they used their own legal workaround called the secondary effects doctrine. This let them argue that the clubs, not the dancing, caused bad things like crime. It was a super clever way to regulate the business into the ground without ever technically banning the speech.
And all of this brings us right back to where we started, to that big economic mystery. After all these cultural shifts and legal fights, how in the world did the price of a lap dance just stay frozen at $20?
It really all comes down to psychology. That $20 bill became what's known as a psychological anchor. It's simple, it's one bill, it's an easy transaction, and customers just got used to it. Trying to raise the price to, I don't know, $45 to match inflation, it would feel like a huge ripoff, and people would just say no. So the base price just stayed put.
But obviously, if you can't make money on a $20 dance, how does a business even work? Simple, the upsell. That $20 dance isn't the main product anymore. It's basically an advertisement, an appetizer. The real business model is built on getting customers into those private VIP rooms, where the prices suddenly jump into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars.
Today, the biggest fights about the lap dance have way less to do with public morality and a lot more to do with what's happening inside the clubs themselves. We're talking about labor rights.
And here's the core of the fight. Most clubs call their dancers independent contractors. This means the dancers have to pay the club house fees, basically rent, just for the privilege of working there. But more and more, dancers are suing, arguing, hey, wait a minute, we're subject to the club's rules, we're controlled by the club, that makes us employees, and we should get minimum wage and other protections. It's a debate that sounds a lot like the larger fight over the whole gig economy.
So what is the lap dance really? Is it an economic anomaly, a legal battleground, a cultural lightning rod? The answer is, yeah, it's all of those things. It's the story of clever innovation, a fascinating economic case study, and a symbol that continues to be a battleground for law, for labor, and for desire. It just goes to show you, sometimes the most familiar things have the most complicated and surprising histories.